The wrench slipped from my grease-stained fingers as I heard Lena's voice drift through the garage window at midnight. She was laughing, not the tired, obligatory chuckle I'd grown accustomed to over our 18 years of marriage, but something light and musical, something I hadn't heard in years. "Love you too, O," she whispered into her phone before hanging up. Oh, not Nate, not honey, not even the sarcastic dear she'd taken to using lately. I wiped my hands on the oil-stained rag and stepped closer to the window. Through the kitchen glass, I could see Lena pacing in her silk pajamas, the expensive ones I'd never seen before. Her face glowed in the phone's light, transformed by an expression I barely recognized. Joy, maybe. Or anticipation. My name is Nathan Nate Kowalski, and I fix broken things for a living. Engines, transmissions, the occasional marriage counseling session over a beer with the guys at the Anvil. But standing there in my own garage at midnight, watching my wife glow like a teenager after her first kiss, I realized some things might be beyond repair. The next morning arrived with Pennsylvania's typical November bite. Steelton hadn't seen prosperity since the mills closed, and most days the town felt like it was slowly sinking into the Susquehanna River. My auto shop, Kowalski's Garage, sat on the main drag between a shuttered hardware store and a check-cashing place that did more business than I cared to admit. Lena emerged from our bedroom wearing a navy suit I'd never seen, her auburn hair styled in soft waves instead of the usual ponytail. She moved through our kitchen like she was floating, humming under her breath while she made coffee in the fancy machine she'd bought last month. "You're up early," I said, settling into my usual chair at our scarred wooden table. "Big day at the firm?" She didn't look at me, focused instead on her phone screen. "Oliver's presenting the Morrison case to the partners, and I'm second chair." Oliver. "Oh, that's great, hun." I kept my voice neutral, practiced from years of navigating Lena's moods. "Celebration dinner tonight?" "Can't. Working late." Still no eye contact. "Don't wait up." She kissed my cheek, a quick, obligatory peck, grabbed her leather briefcase, and headed for the door. Her heels clicked against our hardwood floors with purpose, each step carrying her further from the woman who used to steal my work shirts and wear them while making pancakes on Sunday mornings. The door closed behind her with finality, leaving me alone with the lingering scent of her new perfume. Something French and expensive that smelled nothing like the vanilla body spray she'd worn for years. I finished my coffee and headed to the garage, where a 1987 Mustang waited for a new transmission. The owner, Jimmy Torino, had been making payments for 3 months, always short by $20 or $30. In the old days, before Lena started climbing the corporate ladder at Brennan, Walsh & Associates, I might have cut him some slack. These days, every dollar mattered. The morning crawled by with the usual parade of customers. Mrs. Patterson's Honda with the mysterious rattling sound that turned out to be a loose heat shield, and Tony Ricci's pickup truck that needed new brake pads. Simple problems with simple solutions, not like whatever was happening in my marriage. Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Around noon, Ricky Sullivan wandered in carrying 2 cups of coffee from the diner down the street. Ricky owned the Anvil, the dive bar where half of Steelton's remaining population went to forget their troubles. We'd grown up together, thrown punches in the same boxing ring at the community center until our knuckles were raw and our dreams of professional fighting had faded into weekend warrior status. "You look like hell," he said, handing me a coffee. "Thanks for the pep talk." "I'm serious, Nate. When's the last time you slept?" I took a sip of coffee and considered the question. Sleep had become elusive lately, replaced by hours of staring at the ceiling while Lena lay beside me, her breathing steady and peaceful. Sometimes she'd smile in her sleep, and I'd wonder what or who she was dreaming about. "Lena's been working late a lot," I said finally. Ricky's expression shifted, the easy smile fading into something more serious. How late we talking? Midnight. Sometimes later. I set down the coffee and picked up a socket wrench, needing something to do with my hands. Big case, apparently. Nate. Ricky's voice carried a warning tone I'd heard before, usually right before he told me something I didn't want to hear. You know I hear things at the bar, right? What kind of things? The kind that might explain why your wife's been spotted at the Marriott downtown, with her boss. The wrench slipped from my fingers again, clattering against the concrete floor. The sound echoed through the garage like a gunshot, sharp and final. Who told you that? Does it matter? Ricky leaned against the workbench, his weathered face serious. Look, maybe it's nothing. Maybe they're just working, but what? But Oliver Brennan's got a reputation, and it ain't for keeping his hands to himself. Oliver Brennan, senior partner at the firm, married to some socialite named Maya, owner of a house in the hills that probably cost more than I'd make in 5 years. I'd met him once at the firm's Christmas party, where he'd looked at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. How long? I asked. Couple months, maybe more. I'm sorry, Nate. I should have said something sooner. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The garage suddenly felt too small, the walls pressing in like a vice. I needed air, space, time to think. I gotta get back to work, I said. Ricky squeezed my shoulder before leaving, a gesture of solidarity that said more than words could. After he was gone, I stood alone in the garage, surrounded by the familiar smells of motor oil and metal, trying to process what I'd just learned. That evening, I waited. Lena had texted around 6 to say she'd be home late, again. By 10 o'clock, I was pacing the living room like a caged animal. By 11, I'd made a decision that would change everything. I drove downtown to the Marriott, my pickup truck feeling out of place among the luxury sedans in the parking garage. The hotel bar was dimly lit and expensive, the kind of place where drinks cost more than most people in Steelton made in an hour. I found a corner booth with a clear view of the lobby and ordered a beer, settling in to wait. At 11:47, they appeared. Lena walked through the lobby like she owned the place, her hand resting lightly on Oliver's arm. It wasn't affection so much as possession, an elegant claim staked in public view. He was exactly what I'd expected, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of polished confidence that came from too many victories and too few consequences. His suit looked custom-made, the kind of thing you order in London and have flown in overnight. Together, they moved like a couple who'd been rehearsing this entrance for weeks, measured, graceful, entirely at ease with their deceit. They stopped at the elevator bank, and I watched Oliver's hand settle on the small of her back, an intimate gesture, effortless and familiar. She didn't flinch, didn't look around, just smiled up at him, and for the first time in months, I saw her truly smile. I stood at the far end of the lobby, with a beer sweating in my hand, pretending to be just another man passing the time. The light from the chandeliers reflected off the marble floors, blinding and cold. When the elevator doors slid shut, sealing them inside their private ascent, the last thing I saw was her hair catching the light like fire. The bartender asked if I wanted another. I shook my head, dropped a few bills on the counter, and muttered something about needing air. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. It carried a calm that felt too steady to be sane. Outside, the November wind hit me hard, slicing through my jacket and cutting clean to the bone. The street was mostly empty, the kind of late hour where only cab drivers and regrets still lingered. I shoved my hands into my pockets and headed toward the parking garage, each footstep echoing like punctuation marks in a sentence I hadn't finished writing. Oliver's BMW sat in a reserved space near the elevator, polished to a mirror shine. The car gleamed under the fluorescent lights, all power and vanity, a perfect extension of the man himself. I stopped a few feet away and stared at it, my breath fogging in the cold air. For a moment, I did the mental math, The cost of repairs, the odds of getting caught, the value of restraint. The smart move, the move the old Nate would have made, was to go home, pretend I hadn't seen a thing, and maybe suggest counseling over burnt toast and weak coffee. But the old Nate had been dismantled piece by piece, traded for the man now standing in front of this car with a blade in his pocket and a storm in his chest. I flicked open my knife. The metal clicked, sharp and final. The blade slid through the sidewall of the front tire with a hiss that was almost musical. A breath of air escaping a lie. Then the back tire. 2 quick motions, efficient and clean. The sound echoed faintly through the concrete cavern of the garage, followed by silence, the kind of silence that hums with satisfaction. I pulled a piece of paper from my wallet and wrote 4 words in block letters. Hope the ride was worth it. I tucked it under the windshield wiper, weighted by a dime so the wind wouldn't take it. The irony wasn't lost on me. After all these years fixing cars for a living, I was finally breaking one. Driving home, I felt something I hadn't in months, a sense of purpose. It wasn't joy or relief, but something steadier, colder, the kind of satisfaction that comes from knowing you've stopped bleeding, even if it's because you cauterized the wound yourself. The old Nate would have confronted Lena directly, cornered her in the kitchen, demanded explanations and apologies. But watching her tonight, watching the way she looked at him, had awakened something different, something patient, something strategic. If they wanted to play games, I'd play along, but by my rules. The next morning, sunlight streamed through my office window at the garage. The world was ordinary again, oil stains, invoices, the faint buzz of the radio. But I couldn't shake the coiled energy beneath my skin. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my inbox pinged. From Lena. Subject: What the hell is wrong with you? The message was short, just 1 line and an attachment. The attachment was a security video. Grainy black and white footage of me walking toward Oliver's BMW. My jacket collar was turned up, but it didn't matter. Anyone could tell it was me. The timestamp read 12:23 a.m. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Are you insane? Lena's voice was sharp enough to cut through static. Do you have any idea what you've done? I fixed a problem, I said, keeping my tone even. Seemed like someone needed a reality check. You slashed Oliver's tires. Her voice cracked between anger and panic. He could press charges. For what? I said mildly. I was just walking by and noticed they looked low. Thought I'd help out. For a few heartbeats, there was only silence. The kind that stretches across miles, filled with memories you can't return to. 18 years of marriage, of shared mornings and empty apologies, all distilled into a single quiet space between 2 people who no longer recognized each other. When she finally spoke, her voice was cold, detached. This isn't over, Nate. No, I said, leaning back in my chair, eyes drifting to the camera footage frozen on my screen. I don't think it is. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid of that. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It crept through me like rust through metal, slow and steady and irreversible. 3 days after the tire incident, I sat in my garage office, staring at a stack of unpaid invoices and listening to the November wind rattle the windows. Lena hadn't spoken to me since our phone call, communicating only through terse text messages about schedules and household logistics. She was working late again tonight. Of course. The bell above the garage door chimed, and Maya Brennan walked in. I recognized her from the firm's Christmas party, elegant, composed, with the kind of understated beauty that came from good genes and better skin care. She wore dark jeans and a cashmere sweater, her blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail that probably took an hour to achieve. Mr. Kowalski? Her voice carried a slight accent, maybe European. I'm Maya Brennan. I believe you know my husband. I set down my coffee and studied her face. No anger, No accusation, just curiosity and something that might have been amusement. Mrs. Brennan, what can I do for you? My car's been making a strange noise. I was hoping you could take a look. She led me to a silver Mercedes parked outside, its paint job worth more than most of my customers' entire vehicles. I popped the hood and spent a few minutes examining the engine, though I suspected this wasn't really about car trouble. Sounds like a loose belt, I said finally. Nothing serious. I can fix it in 20 minutes. Thank you. She leaned against the fender, watching me work. I heard about Oliver's tire trouble the other night. I kept my eyes on the engine. That so? Hotel security cameras are remarkably clear these days, aren't they? Technology's amazing, she laughed, a genuine sound that reminded me of how Lena used to laugh before everything became complicated. I like you, Mr. Kowalski. You're direct. I appreciate that in a person. I straightened up and looked at her. What's this really about, Mrs. Brennan? Call me Maya, and this is about the fact that my husband thinks he's much cleverer than he actually is. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. Oliver and Lena entering a restaurant downtown, her hand on his chest as they laughed at some private joke. He's been sloppy lately, distracted. The wrench in my hand felt heavier suddenly. I'm sorry. Don't be. I've known about his extracurricular activities for years. Usually, I ignore them. They never last long, and frankly, they keep him occupied so I can focus on my own interests. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. But this one's different. This one might actually threaten my comfortable life. I finished tightening the belt and closed the hood. What do you want from me? Information, cooperation, maybe a little creative problem solving. She handed me a business card with only a phone number printed on it. I think we might be able to help each other, Nate. May I call you Nate? After she left, I stood in the garage holding her card and wondering what I'd just gotten myself into. The smart play was to throw the card away, file for divorce, and try to rebuild my life with whatever dignity remained. But smart had never been my strong suit. That evening, I drove to the Anvil. The bar occupied a narrow building squeezed between a pawn shop and a laundromat, its neon sign flickering intermittently in the November dusk. Inside, the usual crowd nursed beers and watched a college basketball game on the mounted television. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and the kind of conversations that happened when people had nowhere else to go. Ricky was behind the bar, polishing glasses with practiced efficiency. He nodded toward an empty stool at the far end, away from the other customers. Heard you had an interesting visitor today, he said, sliding a beer across the scarred wooden surface. News travels fast in this town. Maya Brennan's not exactly subtle. That Mercedes of hers stands out around here. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. What did she want? I took a long pull from my beer and considered how much to tell him. Ricky had been my friend since we were kids, but this felt different, bigger and more dangerous than anything we'd dealt with before. She knows about Oliver and Lena, I said finally. And? And she's not happy about it. Ricky nodded slowly. Rich people problems. They handle things differently than us regular folks. What do you mean? I mean they don't just throw punches and move on. They plan. They scheme. They ruin people quietly and efficiently. He refilled my beer without being asked. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I stared into the amber liquid, watching bubbles rise to the surface. I don't know yet. Well, figure it out fast, because from what I hear, your wife's getting pretty serious about her new situation. Word is she's been asking around about divorce lawyers. The beer turned bitter in my mouth. Who told you that? Jenny Morrison. She works at the courthouse, handles filing. Says Lena's been making inquiries, real quiet-like. Nothing official yet, but... He shrugged. Thought you should know. I finished my beer and left money on the bar. Outside, the temperature had dropped, and ice was forming on the sidewalks. I sat in my truck for a long time, engine running, heat blasting, trying to decide what came next. Maya's business card felt warm in my pocket. The next morning brought our daughter Sophie home from college for Thanksgiving break. She burst through the front door like a small hurricane, her energy filling our quiet house with noise and laughter. At 20, she had Lena's auburn hair and my stubborn streak, a combination that had gotten her into trouble more than once. "Dad!" She threw her arms around me, smelling like the vanilla perfume she'd worn since high school. "I missed you so much." "Missed you too, kiddo. How's school?" "Brutal, but good. I'm thinking about changing my major to communications." Lena emerged from the bedroom, fully dressed despite the early hour. She hugged Sophie with genuine warmth, the first real emotion I'd seen from her in weeks. "How long can you stay?" Lena asked. "Through Sunday. I have to get back for a group project." Sophie looked between us, her smile fading slightly. "Everything okay here? You guys seem tense?" "Just work stress," Lena said quickly. "Your father's been dealing with some difficult customers." I bit back a dozen sarcastic responses and forced a smile. Nothing we can't handle. But Sophie wasn't fooled. She'd always been perceptive, able to read the undercurrents in any room. Over breakfast, she peppered us with questions about our plans for the holiday, the garage, Lena's cases at the firm. Normal family conversation that felt forced and artificial. "I was thinking we could drive up to see the leaves this weekend," Sophie said. "Like we used to when I was little." Lena checked her phone. "I have to work Saturday, big case coming up." "On Thanksgiving weekend?" "The law doesn't take holidays, sweetie." Sophie's face fell, and I felt something twist in my chest. Our daughter was home for 4 days, and Lena was already planning to spend time with Oliver instead. "I'll take you," I said. "We can make a day of it. Maybe stop at that antique place you like in Lancaster." "Really?" Sophie's smile returned. "That would be awesome." After breakfast, Lena left for the office, claiming she needed to prepare for Monday's depositions. Sophie and I spent the morning catching up, her presence a welcome distraction from the chaos in my head. But around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Coffee? We need to talk." I met her at a small cafe on the outskirts of town, far from anywhere we might be recognized. She was already seated when I arrived, nursing a latte and scrolling through her phone. The casual observer might think she was just another suburban mom passing the time between errands. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "I wasn't sure you would. I'm curious about what you have in mind." She pulled out a manila envelope and slid it across the table. "Take a look." Inside were photographs, Oliver and Lena at various restaurants and hotels, always touching, always intimate. Credit card statements showing charges at expensive stores I'd never heard of. Hotel receipts dating back 3 months. "How did you get these?" "Oliver's not as careful as he thinks. He uses our joint credit card for everything, and I have access to his email." Her smile was cold. "He's been buying your wife quite a few gifts lately. Jewelry, clothes, that new perfume she's been wearing." I studied the receipts, recognizing charges that coincided with Lena's mysterious shopping trips and late nights at the office. The amounts were staggering, more than I made in a month spent on trinkets for his mistress. "What do you want me to do with this?" "Nothing yet, but when the time comes, I want you to be ready." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Oliver's up for managing partner next month. The vote is close. He needs to maintain his reputation as a stable family man. If certain information became public at the right time, you'd destroy his career. I'd protect my interests. There's a difference." She finished her latte and stood to leave. "Think about it, Nate. They've been playing games with our lives for months. Maybe it's time we played back." That evening, Sophie and I made dinner together while Lena worked late again. We cooked her favorite meal, spaghetti carbonara with garlic bread, and set 3 places at the table out of habit. But as the hours passed and Lena's chair remained empty, Sophie's cheerful chatter gradually faded into disappointed silence. "She's really not coming, is she?" Sophie asked around 9 o'clock. "Doesn't look like it." "This is so messed up, Dad. When I was little, she never missed dinner. Never." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw the hurt she was trying to hide. Lena's affair wasn't just destroying our marriage, it was breaking our family apart piece by piece. "I'm sorry, kiddo. It's not your fault." She pushed food around on her plate without eating. "But something's wrong, isn't it? You and Mom, you're not happy." The truth sat between us like a loaded weapon. I could tell her everything, about Oliver, about the hotels, about the credit card receipts burning a hole in my jacket pocket. But she was 20 years old and home for Thanksgiving, and some burdens were too heavy for children to carry. "We're working through some things," I said finally. "Are you going to get divorced?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "I don't know, Sophie. I honestly don't know." She nodded, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. "Whatever happens, I want you to know that I love you both. But if you're not happy, maybe it's better to be honest about it." Later that night, after Sophie had gone to bed, I sat alone in my garage office with Maya's envelope spread across my desk. The photographs told a story I'd already suspected, but seeing it documented in black and white made it real in a way that hurt more than I'd expected. My phone buzzed with a text from Lena. "Working very late tonight. Don't wait up." I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "Enjoy your work." She didn't respond. Thanksgiving morning arrived gray and cold, with the kind of Pennsylvania drizzle that soaked through your jacket and settled into your bones. Sophie was still asleep when I heard Lena moving around upstairs, getting ready for another day at the office. I found her in the kitchen, dressed in black slacks and a silk blouse I'd never seen before. She was making coffee with the mechanical precision of someone going through the motions. "Working today?" I asked. "Just for a few hours. Oliver needs help preparing for the Morrison deposition." Oliver. She didn't even pretend anymore. "It's Thanksgiving, Lena." I'm aware of the date. She didn't look at me, focused instead on her phone screen. "I'll be back this afternoon. We can still have dinner. Sophie's been looking forward to spending time with you." And she will. A few hours won't make a difference. But we both knew it would. Sophie had already mentioned how different things were, how distant Lena had become. Our daughter wasn't stupid. She could feel the tension crackling between us like electricity before a storm. After Lena left, I made breakfast for Sophie and myself. She appeared around 10, still in her pajamas, her hair a mess of auburn curls. "Where's Mom?" "Office. She'll be back later." Sophie's face fell, but she didn't say anything. We ate in comfortable silence, the kind that came from years of shared mornings and unspoken understanding. But I could see the questions in her eyes, the growing awareness that something fundamental had shifted in our family. "Want to go for a drive?" I asked. "We could hit that antique place in Lancaster, maybe grab lunch somewhere nice." "What about Mom?" "She'll catch up with us later." We spent the day driving through Pennsylvania's back roads, stopping at small towns and roadside stands. Sophie bought a vintage leather jacket at an antique store, and we had lunch at a diner that served pie thick enough to use as a doorstop. For a few hours, I almost forgot about Oliver and Maya and the photographs burning a hole in my conscience. But around 4 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from Lena. "Running later than expected. Start dinner without me." Sophie read the disappointment on my face before I could hide it. "She's not coming back, is she?" "I don't know, kiddo." "This is about more than work, isn't it, Dad?" I pulled into a rest stop and turned off the engine. Sophie deserved some version of the truth, even if I couldn't tell her everything. "Your mom and I are going through a rough patch," I said finally. "Sometimes people grow apart, want different things. Are you getting divorced?" "I don't know. Maybe." She nodded, processing this information with the resilience that had always amazed me. Whatever happens, I want you to know that I love you both, but I hate seeing you like this, pretending everything's fine when it's obviously not. I'm sorry, Sophie. You shouldn't have to deal with this. I'm not a kid anymore, Dad. I can handle the truth. We drove home in comfortable silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. The house felt empty when we walked in, Lena's absence a physical presence that filled every room. We made dinner together, turkey sandwiches and leftover pie, and watched old movies until Sophie went to bed. Around midnight, I heard Lena's car in the driveway. She came in quietly, probably hoping to avoid a confrontation, but I was waiting in the kitchen, nursing a beer and thinking about everything that had led us to this moment. "How was work?" I asked. She jumped, startled by my presence. "Fine. Long day." "I'll bet." Something in my tone made her look at me more carefully. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just making conversation." She poured herself a glass of wine and sat across from me at the kitchen table. We hadn't been alone like this in months, and the silence stretched between us like a chasm. "Sophie's disappointed," I said finally. "I'll make it up to her." "When?" "Between your late nights and weekend work sessions." "Don't start, Nate." "Start what? Having a conversation with my wife, asking about her schedule, wondering why she's never home anymore?" Lena's jaw tightened. "I'm building my career. I thought you'd be supportive." "I was supportive. For 18 years I was supportive. But this isn't about your career anymore, is it?" The question hung in the air between us, loaded with implications neither of us was ready to address directly. Lena finished her wine and stood to leave. "I'm tired. We can talk about this later." "When? Next week? Next month? When you're not too busy working late with Oliver?" She froze at the kitchen doorway, her back still turned to me. "What did you say?" "You heard me." She turned around slowly, her face pale but composed. "I don't know what you think you know. I know enough." We stared at each other across the kitchen, 18 years of marriage reduced to this moment of brutal honesty. Finally, Lena spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want from me, Nate?" "I want my wife back, but I don't think she exists anymore." Lena left the kitchen without another word, and I heard her footsteps on the stairs, the bedroom door closing with finality. I sat alone at our kitchen table, drinking beer and planning my next move. The next morning, I called Maya. We met at the same cafe, but this time I came prepared. I'd spent the night thinking about everything she'd shown me, everything I'd discovered on my own. The photographs, the credit card receipts, the late nights and weekend work sessions. The pieces were all there. I just needed to figure out how to use them. "You look like a man who's made a decision," Maya said, settling into her chair with a cup of coffee. "I want to know what you have in mind. Direct. I like that." She pulled out another envelope, thicker than the first. "Oliver's up for managing partner in 2 weeks. The vote is scheduled for December 15th. If certain information became public before then, his chances would be ruined, along with his reputation, his marriage, and his comfortable life." Her smile was sharp. "The same things he's been threatening to take from us." I opened the envelope and found more photographs, more receipts, more evidence of the affair that had been destroying my marriage for months. But there was something else. Financial documents showing Oliver's gambling habits, his mounting debts, his increasingly desperate attempts to maintain his lifestyle. "He's in trouble," I said. "Deep trouble. The kind that makes men do stupid things." Maya leaned forward. "The kind that makes them vulnerable." "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing yet. But when the time comes, I want you to be ready to act." She handed me another business card, this one with an address. "There's a charity gala next Saturday night at the country club. Oliver will be there, schmoozing potential voters, so will half the legal community. And it would be the perfect time for certain information to become public. Accidentally, of course." I studied the address, recognizing the country club where Lena had dragged me to various firm functions over the years, the kind of place where reputations were made and destroyed over cocktails and small talk. I'll think about it. Don't think too long, Nate. They're not waiting for us to catch up. That afternoon, Sophie left for college, hugging me goodbye with tears in her eyes. She'd spent the morning trying to talk to Lena, but their conversation had been stilted and awkward, full of the kind of forced cheerfulness that fooled no one. "Take care of yourself, Dad," she whispered as I loaded her bags into my truck. "And don't let anyone take advantage of you, okay?" "I won't, kiddo. I promise." After dropping Sophie at the bus station, I drove back to the garage and tried to focus on work, but my mind kept wandering to Maya's proposal, to the gala next Saturday, to the envelope of evidence sitting in my desk drawer like a loaded weapon. That evening, Lena came home early for once, carrying takeout from our favorite Chinese restaurant. She'd changed into jeans and a sweater, looking more like the woman I'd married than she had in months. "I thought we could have dinner together," she said, unpacking containers of lo mein and sweet and sour chicken. "Talk about things." We ate in relative peace, making small talk about Sophie's visit and the garage's business. For a moment, I almost believed we could find our way back to each other, that the last few months had been a nightmare we could wake up from. But then her phone buzzed with a text, and I saw the way her face lit up when she read it, the kind of unconscious brightness that no one can fake. It was subtle, almost nothing, a soft exhale, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her mouth, a light that reached her eyes for the first time all evening. Then she quickly typed a response, her fingers flying over the screen with the kind of efficiency that only comes from familiarity. Muscle memory built over hundreds of exchanged messages. "Work?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. She didn't even look up. "Just Oliver confirming Monday's schedule." Oliver. Always Oliver. The name hung in the air like cigarette smoke, faint and toxic. "Lena," I said carefully, "are you happy?" The question landed harder than I intended. She froze, chopsticks suspended halfway to her mouth, and then lowered them onto the edge of her plate. For a second, she didn't look like the woman I'd spent the last 10 years with. She looked like someone halfway between guilt and exhaustion. "What kind of question is that?" she asked. "An honest one," I said quietly. She went still. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence, the sound of wind against the windows. She looked down at her hands, fingers folding and unfolding in her lap, the ring on her finger catching the light in small, deliberate flashes. It felt like time had slowed around her as she tried to shape a version of the truth she could live with. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. "I don't know anymore, Nate. I honestly don't know." Something inside me shifted at that, part heartbreak, part confirmation. I had known the answer long before I asked the question, but hearing it aloud still carved something out of me. "Are you happy with me?" The words came out low, almost a whisper, another long pause. She didn't meet my eyes this time. "We've grown apart," she said at last, the phrase delivered with clinical detachment. "You know that." "And Oliver makes you happy?" That got her attention. She looked up sharply, the mask cracking for just a moment. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Her silence was an admission all its own. We stared at each other across the table, two people finally stripped of pretense, caught between resentment and resignation. The room felt suddenly smaller, as if the walls themselves were listening. Lena's phone buzzed again, face down beside her plate, but this time she didn't move. "What do you want me to say?" she asked finally, her voice trembling with frustration or fear. "I want you to tell me the truth. The truth is complicated. Try me." She stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the tile with a harsh screech. Her half-finished dinner sat cooling between us, a domestic scene collapsing in slow motion. "I can't do this right now." When can you do it? I asked, my calmness surprising even me. When Oliver gets his promotion? When you've figured out how to explain this to Sophie? When? Her jaw tightened. I need time to think. You've had months to think. Lena hesitated in the doorway, one hand gripping her car keys. For a second, I thought she might turn back, might say something that could stop the quiet unraveling of everything we'd built. But she didn't. She left the kitchen without another word, heels clicking against the hardwood, the front door closing with a deliberate finality. A moment later, I heard her car start in the driveway. Through the window, I watched her taillights disappear into the November darkness, twin red streaks fading into the distance, heading toward whatever comfort Oliver could provide, leaving me in the cold, unlit silence of what used to be our home. I sat alone at our kitchen table, surrounded by the remnants of our failed dinner, and made my decision. It was time to stop being the victim. The charity gala was exactly what I'd expected. 200 of Steelton's most prominent citizens gathered in the country club's ballroom, nursing cocktails and writing checks for causes they'd forget about by morning. I stood near the bar, nursing a whiskey and watching Oliver work the room like a politician on election night. He moved from group to group with practiced ease, his silver hair perfectly styled, his smile never wavering. Maya stood beside him, elegant in a black cocktail dress, playing the role of supportive wife while her eyes tracked his every movement. They looked like the perfect power couple, successful, attractive, completely in control of their world. Lena was there too, stunning in a navy dress I'd never seen before. She stayed close to Oliver's orbit, but not too close, maintaining the professional distance that fooled exactly no one. I could see the way she looked at him when she thought no one was watching, the way her face lit up whenever he spoke to her. Nate Kowalski, right? I turned to find a man in his 50s approaching, his hand extended in greeting. He was tall and lean, with the kind of expensive haircut that screamed corporate lawyer. Russ Hartley, he said. I'm Oliver's business partner. I think we met at last year's Christmas party. I shook his hand, trying to place him. Right. How's business? Booming. Oliver's got the golden touch lately. Russ signaled the bartender for another drink. You're Lena's husband, aren't you? She's been doing excellent work for us. So I hear. Oliver speaks very highly of her, says she's got real potential. His smile was friendly, but there was something calculating in his eyes. Must be nice having a wife who's so dedicated to her career. The comment hit like a slap, loaded with implications I couldn't ignore. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing at all. Just admiring her work ethic. Russ raised his glass in a mock toast. Here's to dedicated employees. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing at the bar with my hands clenched into fists. The message was clear. Everyone knew about Oliver and Lena. The affair wasn't a secret. It was an open joke among their colleagues. I was the only fool who'd been kept in the dark. Enjoying the party? Maya appeared beside me, radiant in her black dress and diamond earrings. Up close, I could see the steel beneath her polished exterior, the cold intelligence that had built her comfortable life. It's educational, I said. I'll bet. She glanced across the room to where Oliver was holding court near the silent auction tables. He's in rare form tonight, very confident. About the managing partner position? About everything. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. Confidence can be dangerous in a man like Oliver. It makes him careless. Before I could respond, she melted back into the crowd, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my growing anger. I finished my whiskey and was preparing to leave when I heard Oliver's voice rise above the general conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just a moment. The room gradually quieted as Oliver stepped onto a small platform near the front of the ballroom. He looked completely at ease, commanding the attention of everyone present with the natural authority of a man accustomed to being heard. I want to thank you all for coming tonight and for your generous support of the Children's Hospital Foundation, he began. This cause is particularly close to my heart, as many of you know. He launched into a polished speech about community service and corporate responsibility, hitting all the right notes with practiced precision. The audience listened with the polite attention of people who'd heard similar speeches at dozens of similar events. But I wasn't listening to his words. I was watching Lena, who stood near the back of the crowd, with her eyes fixed on Oliver like he was delivering the Sermon on the Mount. The expression on her face was one of pure adoration, the look of a woman completely infatuated with a man who wasn't her husband. The sight hit me like a physical blow, more painful than any punch I'd ever taken in the boxing ring. This wasn't just about attraction or excitement or even rebellion. Lena was in love with him. In closing, Oliver was saying, I want to remind everyone that success isn't just about personal achievement. It's about lifting up those around us, about using our talents and resources to make a difference in our community. The applause was enthusiastic, and Oliver basked in it with obvious pleasure. He stepped down from the platform and immediately found himself surrounded by admirers and well-wishers. Lena approached him with a glass of champagne, and their fingers brushed as he took it from her hand. I'd seen enough. I left the country club and drove straight to the Anvil, where the Saturday night crowd was in full swing. The contrast was jarring, from the polished elegance of the gala to the honest grit of a working-class bar where people said what they meant and meant what they said. Ricky was behind the bar, as always, and he took one look at my face before pouring me a double whiskey. That bad, huh? Worse. I drained the glass in one swallow and pushed it back toward him. Pour another. Maybe you should slow down. Maybe you should mind your own business. Ricky held up his hands in surrender and refilled my glass. What happened? I told him about the gala, about Russ Hartley's comments, about the way everyone seemed to know about the affair except me. I told him about watching Lena look at Oliver like he was the answer to every prayer she'd ever whispered. So what are you going to do about it? Ricky asked when I finished. I'm going to destroy him. Nate, I'm going to take everything he has and burn it to the ground. His career, his reputation, his marriage, all of it. That's not you talking. That's the whiskey. No, it's me, the real me, the one who's tired of being everyone's joke. I finished my drink and stood to leave. They want a villain? I'll give them one. The next morning arrived with a hangover and a text message from Maya. We need to talk, today. I met her at a small park on the outskirts of town, away from prying eyes and gossiping tongues. She was sitting on a bench overlooking a pond, feeding breadcrumbs to a family of ducks. She looked younger in jeans and a sweater, more vulnerable than the polished socialite I'd seen at the gala. You left early last night, she said without looking up. I'd seen enough. Oliver's speech was quite something, wasn't it? All that talk about community service and lifting people up. Her laugh was bitter. The irony was almost too much to bear. What do you want, Maya? She turned to face me, and I saw something dangerous in her eyes. I want to make him pay. For the lies, the humiliation, the years of pretending I don't know what he's doing when he works late. And how do you propose we do that? The managing partner vote is this Friday. If certain information became public before then, say, at the firm's holiday party on Thursday night, it would be quite embarrassing for Oliver. What kind of information? She handed me a flash drive. Security footage from the Marriott Hotel, credit card statements, email exchanges between Oliver and Lena discussing their relationship. Everything we need to destroy him. I stared at the small device in my palm, feeling its weight like a loaded weapon. This is enough to ruin both of them. That's the idea. What about the fallout? Lena's career, your marriage, the gossip? My marriage has been over for years. I'm just making it official. Maya stood to leave. As for the rest of it, Sometimes you have to burn everything down before you can rebuild. That evening, I sat in my garage office with the flash drive plugged into my laptop, scrolling through months of evidence. The security footage was damning. Oliver and Lena entering and leaving hotel rooms, kissing in parking garages, holding hands at restaurants across town. The email exchanges were even worse, full of intimate details and future plans that made my stomach turn. But it was the credit card statements that really told the story. Thousands of dollars spent on gifts for Lena, jewelry, clothes, expensive dinners at restaurants I couldn't afford. Oliver had been buying my wife's affection with money that should have been supporting his own family. I was so absorbed in the evidence that I didn't hear footsteps in the garage until it was too late. "What are you doing?" I spun around to find Lena standing in the doorway, her face pale with shock. She'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater, but she still looked professional, polished, completely out of place in my grimy garage. "Research," I said, closing the laptop. "Research into what?" She stepped closer, and I could smell her new perfume, the expensive French scent that Oliver had probably bought for her. "What's on that computer, Nate?" "The truth." Her face went white. "What truth?" I reopened the laptop and turned the screen toward her. The security footage played in silent black and white, showing her and Oliver entering a hotel room 3 weeks ago. She watched for a moment, then looked away. "Where did you get this?" "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." "Why? Because you're wondering how long I've known? How much evidence I have? Whether anyone else has seen it?" She sank into the chair across from my desk, suddenly looking older than her 41 years. "How long have you known?" "Months. Since before Sophie came home for Thanksgiving." "And you didn't say anything?" "I was hoping you'd come to your senses, end it on your own." I closed the laptop again. "But that's not going to happen, is it?" She was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands folded in her lap. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen, and now we have to deal with the consequences." "What do you want from me, Nate?" "I want you to end it. Tonight. Call Oliver and tell him it's over." "I can't do that." "Why not?" She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "Because I love him." The words hit me like a physical blow, more painful than any punch I'd ever taken. I'd suspected it, seen it in her face at the gala, but hearing her say it out loud made it real in a way that hurt more than I'd thought possible. "And what about me? What about our marriage? What about Sophie?" "I don't know." The tears were flowing freely now. "I don't know how to fix this." "You can't fix it, Lena. It's too late for that." She wiped her eyes and stood to leave. "What are you going to do with that footage?" "I haven't decided yet. Please don't do anything to hurt Oliver. His career, his family, they don't deserve to be destroyed because of our mistakes." "Our mistakes? This was your choice, Lena. Yours and his." She left without another word, and I heard her car start in the driveway. Through the window, I watched her taillights disappear into the December darkness, probably heading straight to Oliver to warn him about the evidence I'd collected. I plugged the flash drive back into my laptop and spent the next hour copying files, organizing evidence, preparing for war. If Lena thought she could protect Oliver by warning him, she was about to learn how wrong she could be. The firm's holiday party was in 4 days. That gave me enough time to plan something special, something that would destroy Oliver's reputation and his chances at managing partner in one devastating blow. Maya was right. Sometimes you had to burn everything down before you could rebuild. And I was ready to light the match. The Brennan, Walsh and Associates holiday party was held at the Grand Ballroom of the Steelton Marriott, the same hotel where Oliver and Lena had conducted their affair for months. The irony wasn't lost on me as I walked through the lobby wearing my only suit, a 10-year-old navy blue that had seen better days but still fit well enough to pass inspection. I hadn't been invited, of course. but Maya had taken care of that detail, adding my name to the guest list as her personal guest. Oliver would be furious when he saw me, but by then it would be too late. The ballroom was decorated for Christmas, with twinkling lights and elegant centerpieces that probably cost more than most of my customers made in a week. The legal community of Steelton was out in force, judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, and corporate lawyers all mingling over cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. I found Lena near the bar, stunning in a red dress that hugged her curves in all the right places. She was talking to a group of associates, laughing at something one of them had said, but her smile faltered when she spotted me across the room. Oliver was holding court near the windows overlooking the city, surrounded by partners and potential voters in tomorrow's managing partner election. He looked confident, relaxed, completely unaware that his world was about to implode. Maya appeared beside me, elegant in a silver dress that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. "You clean up nicely," she said. "Thanks. Are you ready for this?" "I've been ready for years." She handed me a small device that looked like a car key fob. "Press the button when I give you the signal. The presentation will start automatically." "What presentation?" "You'll see." Her smile was predatory. "Trust me, it's going to be quite a show." The evening progressed with the usual holiday party rituals, speeches from the senior partners, awards for outstanding achievement, and the traditional toast to another successful year. Oliver gave a brief address about the firm's bright future, his eyes scanning the room with the confidence of a man who believed his victory was assured. "Before we conclude tonight's festivities," he said, "I want to take a moment to recognize some of the outstanding work being done by our associates, particularly Lena Kowalski, whose dedication to the Morrison case has been exemplary." The applause was polite, and Lena blushed prettily as Oliver's eyes lingered on her face. The gesture was subtle but unmistakable to anyone who knew what to look for, a public acknowledgement of their special relationship disguised as professional recognition. "In fact," Oliver continued, "I think Lena's work deserves a more detailed presentation. She's prepared some materials that I believe you'll all find quite illuminating." He nodded toward the back of the room, where a projection screen had been set up earlier for the evening's presentations. Maya caught my eye and nodded once. I pressed the button. The lights dimmed automatically, and the projection screen flickered to life. But instead of legal documents or case summaries, the screen filled with security footage from the Marriott Hotel, black and white images of Oliver and Lena entering a room together, their body language unmistakably intimate. The room went silent except for the soft whir of the projector. 200 of Steelton's legal elite watched in stunned silence as months of evidence played out before them: hotel receipts, credit card statements, email exchanges discussing their relationship in explicit detail. Oliver's face went white as he realized what was happening. He lunged toward the projection equipment, but Maya had positioned herself strategically between him and the controls. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent ballroom, "I give you the real Oliver Brennan, devoted husband, respected colleague, and candidate for managing partner." The footage continued to play, each image more damaging than the last. Lena stood frozen near the bar, her face a mask of horror and humiliation. Several associates had pulled out their phones and were recording the presentation, ensuring that Oliver's disgrace would be preserved for posterity. "Turn it off!" Oliver shouted, his composure finally cracking. "Turn it off right now!" "I'm afraid I can't do that," Maya replied calmly. "This is a public service announcement. The voters have a right to know what kind of man they're considering for managing partner." Oliver pushed through the crowd toward the projection equipment, his face twisted with rage and desperation. But I was waiting for him, positioning myself between him and his goal. "Going somewhere, Oliver?" He stopped short when he saw me, his eyes wild with panic. "You did this. You and that witch planned this whole thing." "Actually, you did this. I just documented it." You don't understand what you've done. This will destroy everything. The firm, my family, Lena's career. Should have thought of that before you started screwing my wife. Oliver swung at me, a wild haymaker that telegraphed itself from across the room. I'd been expecting it, had been hoping for it, actually. I ducked easily and returned with a right cross that caught him square on the jaw, sending him stumbling backward into a table of champagne glasses. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the ballroom, followed by gasps and shouts from the crowd. Oliver struggled to his feet, his lips split and bleeding, his expensive suit stained with champagne and humiliation. "You're finished," he snarled. "Both of you. I'll make sure you never work in this town again." "With what influence?" Maya asked sweetly. "Your managing partner position? Your stellar reputation? Your happy marriage?" The projection screen finally went dark, but the damage was done. The entire legal community had witnessed Oliver's disgrace, had seen the evidence of his affair and his financial improprieties. His career was over, his reputation destroyed, his comfortable life reduced to ashes. Lena pushed through the crowd toward us, her face streaked with tears. "How could you do this?" she demanded. "How could you humiliate us like this in front of everyone?" "Humiliate you?" I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. "You humiliated yourself. You humiliated our marriage. You humiliated our daughter. I just made sure everyone else got to see what kind of people you really are." "This isn't over," Oliver said, wiping the juice from his split lip. "I'll sue you for everything you have. Invasion of privacy, defamation, assault." "Good luck with that," Maya interrupted. "Every piece of evidence shown tonight was obtained legally. Hotel security footage is public record. Credit card statements from joint accounts are community property. And as for the assault," she gestured toward the crowd of witnesses, "I think everyone here saw you throw the first punch." Oliver looked around the ballroom, taking in the faces of his colleagues and potential voters. Some looked shocked, others disgusted, but most just looked embarrassed to be witnessing such a public meltdown. His political aspirations were finished, his professional reputation in tatters. "You've destroyed everything," Lena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "No," I replied. "You destroyed everything. I just made sure there were consequences." Security guards appeared, summoned by the hotel management to deal with the disturbance. They approached cautiously, unsure how to handle a situation involving so many prominent citizens. "Is there a problem here?" one of them asked. "No problem," Maya said smoothly. "Just a small disagreement between colleagues. I think we're finished here." The crowd began to disperse, conversations buzzing with excitement over what they'd just witnessed. Laughter and whispers mixed with the clinking of glasses, and somewhere near the back of the room, a few guests were already replaying the footage on their phones, eager to be the first to share the scandal. By tomorrow morning, the story would be all over town. How Oliver Brennan's affair had been exposed at his own holiday party, how his wife had orchestrated his public humiliation, how the managing partner election had been decided by scandal rather than merit. The power brokers of Steelton thrived on gossip, and tonight they'd been served a feast. The glittering illusion of the firm's golden couple had shattered under the soft light of the chandeliers, and no one could look away. Oliver and Lena left together, their heads down in shame, their futures uncertain. She walked a step behind him, her face pale, her hand hovering near his back as if unsure whether to touch him or let him fall completely. He didn't look at her. They were bound now, not by love, but by mutual ruin. I watched them go with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction that justice had finally been served, sadness that it had come to this. Revenge never quite tastes the way you think it will. It's sharper, colder, and leaves a burn that lingers. "Well," Maya said, breaking the heavy silence beside me. She adjusted her silver dress with practiced elegance, brushing an invisible wrinkle from the satin. "That was quite a performance. I think we can consider our partnership a success." Her tone was light, but there was steel behind it. Maya was the kind of woman who could smile through an explosion if it meant she'd come out ahead. "What happens now?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "Now?" She tilted her head, the faintest smile playing at her lips. "Now Oliver tries to salvage what's left of his career while I file for divorce and take half of everything he's hidden away. The board will need a new managing partner, someone with integrity, perhaps." She let the words hang between us before continuing. "As for you..." She studied my face, eyes sharp and calculating, weighing me like another piece on her chessboard. "What will you do now that your revenge is complete?" I didn't answer right away. I looked around the ballroom at the wreckage of wealth and pride, the broken glass glittering underfoot, overturned tables, wilted floral arrangements crushed under spilled champagne. The place smelled like money and humiliation. It felt like the end of something, but also like the beginning of something else, something quieter, maybe even cleaner. "I'm going to rebuild," I said finally, "starting with myself." Maya nodded approvingly. "That's the spirit. Just remember, sometimes the best revenge is living well." She said it with the air of someone quoting a mantra she actually believed in. Then she turned, collected her clutch, and walked away, her heels clicking like punctuation marks across the marble floor. Within seconds, she was swallowed by the thinning crowd, leaving me alone in the slowly emptying ballroom. Through the tall windows, I could see the lights of Steelton spread out below, hundreds of lives still moving, unaware or uninterested in the scandal unfolding above them. It was the same view Oliver had been admiring just an hour ago when he thought the world belonged to him. Pride always looks better from a distance. Up close, it's fragile, thin as glass. My phone buzzed with a text. "Sophie. Dad, are you okay? Someone posted a video online?" I smiled, the kind of weary smile that comes after surviving something you didn't think you could. I typed back, "I'm fine, kiddo. Better than fine, actually. I'll call you tomorrow." Outside, the December air was cold and clean, sharp enough to sting my lungs in a way that felt almost purifying. The night sky above Steelton was clear, the stars faint but visible, as if the universe was offering a small, silent acknowledgement of closure. I walked to my truck, boots crunching over scattered glass, the remnants of a celebration turned cautionary tale. For the first time in months, I felt lighter. Not free exactly, but unburdened. The old Nate, the one who fixed broken things, who absorbed every blow and smiled through the pain, was gone. In his place was someone harder, more deliberate, and finally honest about what he wanted and what he was willing to do to get it. If they wanted a villain, I'd given them one. And somewhere along the way, I'd discovered that I liked the taste of ashes on my tongue, after all. The engine turned over with a satisfying rumble, steady and alive. I drove home through the quiet streets of Steelton, the city lights blurring in the side mirror. Behind me lay the wreckage of Oliver's ambitions, Lena's illusions, and the part of myself that once believed justice and vengeance were different things. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, divorce proceedings, gossip, the inevitable aftermath of public scandal. But tonight, justice had been served with a side of very public humiliation, and that was enough.